Okay, welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Thursday, December 17th. Here we go. Let me be helpful if I presented my screen when I'm trying to talk to you guys. All right. So here's what we got coming up, folks. We are going to do a little bit of term review, considering you've got a term quiz coming up next week. Be advised about your due dates. Make sure that I remind you about that in Schoologies, that you guys you're going to want to pay attention to when folders are closing. You're going to want to make sure that you pay attention to some of the due dates coming up next week. Okay. I'm going to start off a little term review, doing a little Quizlet Live. Then we're going to talk a little bit and do a quick John Brown video. It's about 6 minutes. Those of you that had me in U.S. History A, you may remember me talking about John Brown. He was that radical that went out and thought that he would start his own insurrection. He thought that he would try to start this rebellion and free every slave in the South. Okay. So how we decide to view him as a hero or terrorist is still kind of undecided amongst historians today. You will see how to view your Flipgrid feedback. That is very valuable, because if you want to submit said feedback, if you want to resubmit your Flipgrid for full credit, you can at any point, but it would be very helpful if you could see that feedback. And the only thing I really don't like about Flipgrid is that you're not able to see if you have truly submitted it in the app. That can be kind of a problem for some kids. So yeah. Then you'll spend the remainder of the time watching a little lecture that I did on the American Civil War, Part 1. It is going to be available for you via PlayPosit, okay? But let's all right now go to Quizlet.live. Let's go to Quizlet.live. Quizlet.live. It's 436128. 436128. How many kids do we have here? So 26 is what we're looking for. Give you about 30 seconds to get in, then we're going to start this thing. All right, here we go. And there, we lost Harper. There we go. And there, racing. Wowee. Alpaca's off to a great start here. Here we go. Round two, and they're racing. Oh, man. Baldy. Oh, wowee. Come from behind win. Nice job. All right, here we go. Last one. This one's for all the Tostitos, and they're racing. Nice job. All right. All right, we're going to close that down. All right, let's get back into this right here. So just for those of you that might not have an idea about who we're talking about here, you will see in the Civil War lecture that I'm going to mention briefly John Brown. Okay, I'm going to go into a little more depth here about John Brown here in a second. Okay, now John Brown, like when we did our slavery perspectives activity back in U.S. History A, and you learned about all of these abolitionists and all of these people that either were for or against slavery, John Brown is kind of off the chart, both way to the left. I mean, way radical. He thought that anything that dealt with slavery was absolutely evil. He was an Old Testament guy, and for those of you that understand what I'm talking about here, he believes in a vengeful God, and he believes that if you don't do something to right these wrongs here on earth, then we as human beings are going to be paying for it. Okay. In one of his acts called the Potawatomi Creek Massacre, he actually hacked men to death with broadswords. Okay, now that was in response to something that you guys are going to learn about today in the Civil War lecture. Okay, but what John Brown is known for is something called his raid on Harper's Ferry. Now, the raid on Harper's Ferry does not go well for John Brown, and you're going to realize real quick in the video how small of a world it is, even back then, because it's General Lee that comes to put down John Brown's raid. This kind of blows up. It's all over the news. Okay, it's going to be in every newspaper, and John Brown is going to be in prison for a good long time before he is put to death. And in prison, I always think about John Brown sitting there with a silly little smirk on his face, knowing how much he had scared the American public with his raid on Harper's Ferry, because a lot of slave owners in the South thought that this was just the beginning, thought that people were going to come into the South and start these slave uprisings. Okay, so if we had an entire day of class to kind of break this down together, or we were in a more of like a traditional setting, we would spend an entire class period basically talking about whether or not John Brown is a hero or John Brown is a terrorist. Okay, so depending on what your definition of those two are, you can kind of see that unfold here. But I'm going to mute myself because I'm going to play for you a short video. I want you guys to watch this, and then we'll get into the next thing. Here we go.
The father of American terrorism. An inspiration for the civil rights movement. Madman or martyr. Murderer or hero. John Brown's Holy War.
On Sunday evening, October 16, 1859, the radical abolitionist John Brown led 5 blacks and 13 whites into Harper's Ferry, Virginia. He brought along a wagon load of guns to arm the slaves he was sure would rally to him. Once they had, he planned to lead them southward along the crest of the Appalachians and destroy slavery. Brown was an inept businessman who had failed 20 times in 6 states and defaulted on his debts. Yet he believed himself God's agent on earth. In 1856, at Pottawatomie Creek in Kansas, he and his sons had hacked 5 pro-slavery men to death with broadswords, all in the name of defeating Satan and his legions. Brown and his men quietly seized the armory, arsenal, and engine house and took up hostages, including George Washington's great-grandnephew. After that, nothing went right. The first person killed was the town baggage master, a free black. The slaves did not rise up. Angry townspeople did. The first of Brown's followers to fall was Dangerfield Newby, a former slave. Someone in the crowd cut off his ears as souvenirs. On Tuesday morning, federal troops arrived from Washington, led by a U.S. Army Colonel, Robert E. Lee. Lee's men stormed the engine house, and 9 more of Brown's men were killed, including 2 of his sons. Brown, severely wounded, was turned over to Virginia to be tried for treason.
In firing his gun, John Brown has merely told what time of day it is. It is high noon. Thank God. William Lloyd Garrison.
An undivided South says, let him hang. Albany, Georgia Patriot.
Virginia found Brown guilty and sentenced him to death. Among the troops at the scene of his hanging were cadets from the Virginia Military Institute, led by an eccentric professor, Thomas J. Jackson. Also there was a private in the Richmond Greys, a young actor named John Wilkes Booth.
December 2nd, 1859. Old John Brown has been executed for treason against a state. We cannot object, even though he agreed with us in thinking slavery wrong. That cannot excuse violence, bloodshed, and treason. It could avail him nothing that he might think himself right. Abraham Lincoln.
Ralph Waldo Emerson likened Brown to Christ. Nathaniel Hawthorne declared, "No man ever more justly hanged." And Herman Melville called him the meteor of the war. Brown had said nothing from the gallows, but he did hand one of his guards a note.
I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away but with blood.
His zeal in the cause of freedom was infinitely superior to mine. Mine was as the taper light. His was as the burning sun. I could live for the slave. John Brown could die for him.
And that is John Brown, folks. Kind of like some of the people in the video likened him to Christ, while others, were very, very happy that he was put to death, that he was and made into a martyr. Okay, so I want you to kind of let that resonate, not necessarily just what to think of John Brown, but how divisive an issue slavery was. Okay, for John Brown, the ends justified the means, that the only way in which he was going to stop slavery was by the sword. And other people, looked at him like this was the worst terroristic act at that time in U.S. history. So something to consider. What I would like you to do now is go right to Schoology. And in Schoology, I'm not going to play the video for you because it's like 20 seconds long. It's real quick, okay? But on the bottom of your Schoology page, you'll see something titled How to View Your Flipgrid Feedback. And that is valuable for you to know for a couple different reasons. In fact, let me share my screen here so I can point out a couple different things. Number one is this right down here, how to view your Flipgrid feedback. What you're going to do is you're going to go to a site. Okay, and I'm not even going to play it for you because it's that freaking, it's that, come on. It's that easy. Okay. You're going to go to myflipgrid.com and then you just scroll down to click on watch video feedback. That's how easy it is. It's important for you to know that for two reasons. Number one, you need to know whether or not your Flipgrid actually submitted. And secondly, you need to know, you need to see that feedback in case you want to resubmit for full credit. So I'm telling you right now, you can resubmit for full credit, okay, at any point there, okay? Now, upcoming things on the calendar that I want you to be fully aware of. That foreign policy folder is closing. If you have something that you have incomplete in that foreign policy folder, you better, if it's an assignment, you better make a copy of it yourself, and then you'll have to email it to me after that folder closes. And because I am done with foreign policy, and that American Revolution folder is probably going to be closing within the next couple of weeks here as well. So understand that it's not like you can just go back and complete stuff, 8-9 weeks into the term. Okay, I want you to make sure that you are completing that stuff in a timely fashion. That Civil War term quiz is going to be for this class next Tuesday. Okay, next Tuesday, and then next Tuesday as well is when that Flipgrid response is to be due. And then you're going to do this Civil War lecture, play pause it. Okay, so that is about all I have for you today, folks. Hold on just a sec, okay? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go in right now. Guys, this lecture that I did, it's 20 minutes, and there's 3 questions on the play pause it. You go on there, you'll be able to get done with this and be done and not really have a whole lot of homework for the week if you're done with your if you're done with your Flipgrid. Okay, so once you go in and you can see that you can access your play pause it, okay, everybody saw where that was under the activities folder in Civil War. Once you see that you can do that, you can log off and be done for the day. Any questions? I will stay on.